Hello, hello. I want to welcome all of you to another hour of some of the stuff it's hard to find anywhere else except right here on this radio station and on this radio show, the Universal Consciousness Show. And we try to educate people, we try to open their mind, we stretch the mind, and sometimes we blow the mind away. And we're going to do that today, because we have a wonderful guest with us, and it's John Desouza, retired FBI investigator John Desouza. And we're going to talk about some interesting things here. And Diana, can we hear you?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
I just wondered for a second there. I hate it when people go away. Anyway, John is with us here, and I hope we're doing video here, so I hope we can also see him. And even though I cannot, but that's going to work all right. So my name is Aage here, and I got my co-host over in Germany. That's Diana over there. And we just heard from you, so we know you're there. And yeah, that's all right. Don't worry about the phone. The first here, for those of you that want to listen to this show again, go ahead and do that at our website, and that is www.universal-consciousness-show.com. And of course, we are on Facebook under my name and the Universal Consciousness Show, and at John Desouza's platform, wherever he is, and I think he is everywhere. And so is the platform for Late Night in the Midlands, so you'll find us there. And this is going to be interesting. So, Diana.
Hello. Hello, John, and thank you so much for being here with us today. For the beginning, can you tell us what was the turning point in your life that brought you on this path, and especially how did it all begin, and how could you be able to harmonize this spiritual manifestation in your life with FBI background?
Oh, thank you, Diana. It's great to be here with you guys on Universal Consciousness Show. Aage and Diana, thank you so much. Yes, I am John Desouza. I am also known as the X-Man. And yes, I was an FBI special agent for over 25 years. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. And I would say the original incident that got me really aware of the paranormal in general was something that happened even before I went into the FBI. There was an incident that actually helped to inspire me to join the FBI. And it was an incident known as the Miami Shootout. It was a couple of bank robbers named Maddox and Platt, who were in the Miami area, who were robbing a series of banks, a whole bunch of banks. And they had no special abilities or anything special. They would just kind of like, we thought that they were just rednecks that just wore baseball caps and flannel shirts and had guns and would go into banks and rob them. And they did this over a series of many, many weeks. I think this was way back in 1985, around there, right about that time. But an entire crew of a task force of men, of special agents, and also police accurately predicted by studying patterns what was going to be their next bank. And they were there waiting for them. And they were all there with heavy gear and heavy weaponry, and they were waiting for, and sure enough, they showed up there. Maddox and Platt showed up at that bank to rob it. And right away, they tried to place them under arrest, and they wouldn't give up. They wouldn't give up. they pulled out their handguns and started shooting. And of course, they were gunned down by numerous rifles and guns. They were shot by the police. But they didn't go down. It became, they both got up and they started shooting police officers and FBI agents. As a matter of fact, they kept on shooting and running and shooting. And they killed several police officers and FBI agents as well. And they could not be stopped. And they were not wearing body armor. All they had on was flannel shirts and torn jeans. And they could not be stopped. It was, as at one point, there was one FBI agent who was being shot by one of them, who actually tried to grab them and pull them down. And he was simply shot through the head and killed, and they kept on going. It became like, it was like the Terminator. They just kept on marching through. And then they finally returned back to their car, and they were going to leave. They were leaving. They had finished shooting everyone, killing many police officers, many FBI agents, and they went to their car, and they were leaving. Well, there was one FBI agent who had had his arm blown apart by a shotgun, and he was able to get another shotgun, and he was able to rack it, get it ready. And just as they were leaving in their car, he pulled up in front of, jumped up in front of the car, and he was able to shoot both of them right through the base of the skull, the base of the brain, whatever you call that, medulla maybe, where the brain connects with the spine. And he was able to shoot both of them right through that area with the shotgun, emptying the shotgun at them, and then also using his sidearm pistol and finishing. And that was the only thing that finally stopped them. And they finally died in there as they were trying to drive away in the car. Anyway, it's called, anybody can Google that incident. It's called the Miami Shootout. And it's considered a great victorious thing for the FBI back when the FBI was actually, a heroic organization. And what happened was there was big stink about how did they do this. There was a lot of questions because we had a lot of dead FBI agents and police officers at the scene. And so everyone was expecting, the common wisdom was, well, they were probably on angel dust. I think that was popular, the big popular drug at that time. Angel dust, it was called. And they said when people take that drug, they don't feel pain or something like that. So that was but the toxicology reports came back. They didn't even have alcohol in their system. They had nothing. No, not even marijuana or alcohol, nothing. They were completely stone cold sober. And they were both just these skinny hillbillies that were about 150 pounds each. And we never got the answer how that happened, how they did what they did, because it was beyond miraculous almost impossible really, what they did. So anyway, I studied that. Go ahead.
They must have been full of bullet holes.
They literally were, from their feet up to the top of their heads. And one of them actually had a bullet through the heart, the aorta of the heart, and still kept going. So, and they were full of bullet holes, each one of them. And yet they kept on going, running and gunning. And like I said, they were getting ready. They were basically leaving the scene after shooting everyone. And if that one FBI agent hadn't popped up with the shotgun and just gotten them right through the medulla, or whatever that is, at the base of the skull, at the base of the brain, they would have driven off. Anyway, so everyone was very confused, and so the FBI kind of used it as a teaching tool at their academy, saying, well, if this shows that bullets don't stop a determined person. And so they tried to teach that to new FBI agents, including myself, that, you know, just because you're shot, it doesn't mean you're dead or you're dying. You can still keep going and so forth. Anyway, that was one of the things the FBI used it for, but still no explanation ever came out. So as soon as I was selected to go to the FBI, I actually did some nosing around, and I was able to talk to some sheriffs, some deputies that had actually been involved in the case. And they were able to tell me, because I wanted to find out about this incident. It was so interesting and important to me. Yeah. And so what I found out was that they had done the search of their apartment afterward, and the only thing that they found no drugs of any kind, because the community was depending on finding some drugs to explain this incident. And there were no drugs at all. All they found was a little, what do you call that, altar to the Norse gods. Apparently they were Odinists. They were Odinists.
I know those guys.
Yeah, and just before they went out to do this robbery, and apparently every robbery that they did a little incense burn and a sacrifice to a god named Loki, the trickster god, in the Norse mythology. And as soon as they told me that, I said, that's it. That's the answer. That's the answer. Because even then, I was always a para-investigator, somebody who could see beyond just the physical material answers. And I said to them, that's the answer. This entity that they prayed to, that they believed in, gave them some special abilities that he himself supposedly possessed, and in a supernatural way. Because to me, the supernatural answer is the only answer there is in this particular incident, because there's no other explanation, no matter what the scientific thinkers say, for what they did that day. So anyway, that was the very first incident when I was even starting to become associated with the FBI that really woke me up to answer you, Diane. What was the first incident that really turned me towards the paranormal, even when I was just joining law enforcement at that time?
Well, but in your book, The Clear Hearers, which I also read, you refer to the great voice, that it was a kind of voice coming from another realm that saved your life.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, and then you also tell us there that this voice is a kind of manifestation of the divine. And I wanted to know if, meanwhile, do you also have contact with this voice? So can you tell us more now than you knew that at that time about this great voice?
Oh, sure. And that's the Clear Hearers is another subject. But Clear Hearers, for anybody who wants to know, is an ability that people have to hear a clear voice of authority that comes to them during times of crisis, during times of when their life is in danger, and comes to them, helps them, supports them, uplifts them, and sometimes saves their lives. That's what clear hearing is. The first clear hearer, globally known clear hearer, was Joan of Arc, of course, in France, who had the great voice she described as being Mother Mary, the voice of Mother Mary, that came to her and told her that her destiny was to save France through a bunch of miraculous events that supposedly were shown to her that she would be involved in. And at that time, and that's why we get the word clairaudient, which is really a French word. It's clairaudient is a French term. It's not even English, clairaudient. And it really, and the English translation of clairaudient is clear hearing. It's being a clear hearer. So that's why I use that term. But as we see with Joan of Arc, this is a clear voice of authority, and that differentiates it from voice hearing, which is muddled voices that come to people and confuse them and are not heard through the ear. So I've also had great clear hearing experiences, even in law enforcement. And I document these in my book, The Clear Hearers, like you said, Diane. And one of these, and I can tell you, one of these experiences right off the bat was the one in the chapter that I call my day to die, your day to die, because I had an incident where I was in communication with an individual who was going to be an informant for the FBI. His name was Kartos. It's not his true name, but I called him Kartos. And he was a person who had a storefront that I would visit, and I would sit with him. We would drink Turkish coffee, and he would tell me all kinds of things about the jihadi community. It was counterterrorism at that time. And it was so I was developing him as a source of information. And ultimately what happened there was I would visit him periodically, but it was difficult to do the checks on him because we would always do the background checks on these individuals. It would take a while, but his were all overseas because he had come he was an immigrant from the Soviet Union republics, the Eastans. And so he was from there. So I had to send checks overseas to do the checks on him. And the checks on him still hadn't come back. I was still talking with him, interviewing him. He seemed to be he was a short Arabic man, very strong, very physically strong, very gregarious, friendly, outgoing. He was always very happy to see me. Anyway, so one day I went into Kartos' storefront. I tried not to make noise with the double doors, and I went in and I rifled through one of the desks. He had a lot of desks set up that had no activity because this was basically a front for whatever his real business was. And I went into the only desk I'd ever seen him at out of all these desks that were set up. And I started rifling through the desk. I was trying to be careful because there was a walled mirror behind me. There was an entire walled mirror that if he walked in, he would be able to see what I was doing. So I rifled through the desk, and I found the top drawer was filled with portraits of him with political candidates. And he was arm in arm with like Dick Cheney and other politicians. It was very interesting. But then underneath that, I found a dagger. It was what we call a kirpak. It was a ceremonial dagger, but even though it was a very lovely dagger, about a foot long, and it was nice handle, but it was very sharp. And I saw something on it that appeared the consistency of dried blood. And so I heard him coming. I put it back, and I closed the drawer, and I went back to the front doors as if I had just come in. And so we had our regular meeting, interview, very nice talk, and we had our coffee, and then I left. So after that incident, I didn't know the checks were taking a long time to come back, the ones that would tell me who exactly he really was. I came in, I was coming through the double doors, and suddenly I didn't hear, I got a wave of sound from the back of my head that just said, "Do not go in there." And I just was a little startled. I had the double doors open, and Kartos saw me. He came right over to that desk I was talking about before, and he was standing by there. And he was just motioning for me to come in. And I was pushed open the double doors, and one of my legs locked up, and I could not move forward. And again, I heard the voice say, "Do not go in there." And I was trying to move my leg, and now Kartos is yelling at me, come on in, hurry up, my friend. I've been waiting for you. This is the most important meeting we've ever had. Come. Very important things to show you. Come, please." And now I tried to move. Now both of my legs locked up. And I got the third and final, "Do not go in there." And I thought I was having a stroke. I was a little concerned, but both of my legs locked up as I was trying to move forward. And I was in the midst also trying to hold these doors open. And I started yelling back at Kartos, "Kartos, I just came back. I have an emergency, and I can't come and visit today. I'm sorry, I can't." And I kept trying to move forward. Despite that, kept trying to, and my legs were locked up, and I couldn't. And now I was seeing Cartos by the back wall, next to that desk, and he started pulling out these portraits that I had looked at the week before, and he was saying, "No, I have to show you these things. I have a picture of myself with very important men. You have to see these to show you who I'm really connected to. You have to see these." And he pulled out one of those portraits, and now in the walled mirror behind him, I could now see that ceremonial dagger that I had seen the week before, or when I was rifling through the drawer, was in the small of his back. He was holding it in the small of his back with his other hand. And so now I saw that, and I listened to the tone of his voice, and I could tell that something was really, really off here, because he kept screaming, "You got to come just 1 minute. You got to come in just for a minute." He was screaming at the top of his voice, "Please, just come on in, just for a minute. This is very, very important. Got to come in." And then I said to him, "No, Cardos, I'm sorry. I am leaving. I will see you next week. And I can't come in right now." And I pushed myself back, and my legs unlocked. They completely unlocked. They were fine as soon as I moved backwards. And so I said, "Okay, I'm leaving now. Sorry, goodbye." And the last thing I heard from him was roaring out, "Just 1 second. Just come in for 1 second." And then I closed the doors and I left. And my legs were fine. And I realized that he was going to kill me. In any case,
it was obvious. Yeah, somebody saved your life there.
Yeah. In any case, and I had no indication of that previously. He was a very outgoing, warm, very nice man. So what happens with these people sometimes is that they get activated by other organizations. Sometimes their families that are still in their home countries are under duress, and they are given assignments, and it can be so that they switch, they turn into something else at a moment's notice. That's what happens. We call it activation. So anyway, the next week, actually the next few days, all the checks came back on him, and he had a primary fake name that he used. But that fake name, we have algorithms that identify every alias that's ever been used with that name. And one of the aliases that came back to, according to the CIA, one of the aliases matched up to a personality, a person that. I'm getting some echo. One of his aliases matched up to a person who had killed several Soviet police officers in the Soviet Union with sharp-edged weapons, and was known as a specialist in that area. So I came back there to his storefront with other FBI agents, and everything was gone. Everything was gone. He had gotten everything under false identities anyway, and everything had been sanitized completely. All data erased, and everything had been cleaned. Even fingerprints were gone. And so that was the last time I saw or heard of him at that time.
Wow. Something saved your life there, John.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. And those are the types of incidences when the great voice comes forward and helps people. But people can learn to have more constant contact with the great voice. They can train themselves, and so that it's not just for life-saving events that it occurs. So that's something that has to be learned over time.
Wow.
But you also talk in your book about election correction, that say the law of election correction that says then when we through our own free will we get to an dangerous edge through our choice, then the great voice will manifest a changing in our life to bring us back from the edge. So
That's
how can we
exactly right.
control this? How can we control this?
Well, the way that it can be controlled is to listen to your still small voice, which is something completely different. We all have planted, like in our solar plexus, what we call the still small voice of guidance, which really isn't a voice at all. It's a prompting that is planted within you that helps you to keep yourself on course all the time. And it's just the knowingness. It's that little prompting, that still small voice that tells you, go this way. Don't keep this appointment. Don't do this. Don't do that. And most of us have no connection with our still small voice because of technology, because of the noisy society that we live in. And so we're pretty much disconnected from that still small voice that we all have. And
we are having audio problems right now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened with Aage. He has gone frozen as well, and John has completely disappeared. So, you are by yourself, Diana, with me.
Okay.
What I'll do is I'll cut to break right now so that I can try and get both of them back.
Okay, so you will put now the break.
Yeah, I will go to the break and I will try to get them back.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, I'll wait here.
No robs.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Available now, Troll Spray. Do you have problems with trolls? Do you constantly find yourself turning on the light of truth and find they come out of the woodwork after you? Give your trolls a quick squirt of Troll Spray and you'll be amazed at how quickly they flee. Troll Spray has been tested on all of the different types of trolls, shills, false prophets, doomsayers, sock puppets, and of course, those ever fearsome hostile radio show hosts. It works on them all. Get Troll Spray today, available only at LNM Radio Network. Spray the trolls away with Troll Spray.
Why subscribe to Late Night in the Midlands, you ask? Well, I'll tell you why. Late Night in the Midlands covers everything, and through the thousands of expert guests who have joined Michael Vera on his show, come pieces of the big puzzle, which started many years ago. Michael and his guests reveal information dating back to the beginning of time. To this very moment, Michael Vera not only brings you the best guests with the best information, but Michael is not afraid to call out those who are less than honest. You see, in this day and age, we need a radio show we can count on and a radio host we can trust to expose the truth one show at a time. So become a late nighter and subscribe now. Talk radio like no other. Late Night in the Midlands, bringing the truth back to talk radio.
great fear and trembling shall seize them, even to the ends of the earth. The earth shall be hurt, and all things which are in it perish, while judgment shall come upon all, even upon all the righteous. Behold, he comes with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment upon them and destroy the wicked. Yet as God has appointed, so are all things brought to pass. No peace shall be to you.
Do you think social media is the end-all be-all? Do you live and breathe by Facebook and other platforms? Do you spend hours and hours endlessly going through posts by alleged friends in an endless quest to have a life? You need Fakeaway, available exclusively through the LNM Radio Network. Our crack scientific teams have worked tirelessly to perfect this product and have made it available to you through this limited offer. Fakeaway can solve the problems suffered by you and many others. It can help you understand you have been snowed by the fake media, the social media biases you encounter every time you click refresh, and even help your hair grow by keeping you from pulling it out over the smallest offenses. Get Fakeaway today, only through LNM Radio Network. Fakeaway is not for shills, disinfo agents, lovers of politicians who keep screwing the country, constant end-of-the-world predictors, liars, hostile radio show hosts, or snowflakes.
Welcome back to the Universal Consciousness Show. I think Aage and John are having trouble trying to connect right now, so it's just me and you, Diana.
Okay.
So, Diana, would you like to continue on with the show, and maybe just talk a little bit about yourself while I still try to get them back?
Yes, of course. So for the people that don't know me yet, I'm Diana, and I'm living in Germany. And for a long time ago, I came here with as a single mother. I was born in Romania, and I was not the kind of person like you usually see in the radio, but I healed myself with a lot of knowledge that I gained on my own researches. And this is how I get to know Aage. And in a very short time, he contacted me and he asked me if I want to be his co-host in a radio show, which doesn't happen every day. This happened after I read his book. And I was very connected to his energy.
Oh,
I see you are all
Diana.
there, yeah? Hi.
Desouza here, connected to your energy.
Yeah, yes, I had to talk about myself meanwhile.
Oh, I wish I'd heard that.
Okay, so should we continue?
Yeah, I am back here also.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah, I think we had some technical difficulties here, but I think we are back.
Yes, indeed, we are back. I'm not sure what happened with Skype there, but it froze you, Aage, and same with you, John. So we all know how Skype is, so I'll just let this one ride.
Yeah.
But we'll go back to the show.
Okay.
Continue.
But now I'm only seeing Diane now.
Okay.
Okay, that's my fault. There we go.
Ah, Nice. Good.
Okay, I think we are back again. And before the break here, we had a little problem, but I think we're back on the air and it's going to get good. There is one more thing, John, that I really wanted you to talk about. And you know, there's a lot of strange things happening in the world. And it is not just in the United States. Some of it is in China, in Australia, in Africa. And there are hundreds and hundreds of people that have seen this floating city in the sky in China. And there are several explanations to this, and I sure like for you to enlighten us on this one a little bit.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this because I will be traveling to China soon, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it as well. There's a phenomena that anyone can look up. You can look it up on YouTube or any other common databases, floating cities in China, off the coast of China. And this has been the apparitions, I mean, very clear apparitions of these cities in the clouds that appear with buildings, towns. Some people have said anecdotally on the ground that it's so clear when these apparitions happen, and they are being shown on YouTube. People will film, and some people say it's so clear they can actually see people in those cities running around in those images. Okay, this has happened several times. Anyone can look at those videos. Some are good. Some of the videos are good, very clear. Some are not. So it just depends once you start going through these. And I have to look up what the official government. I'm sure I'm sure the Chinese government hasn't given any answer on this officially. I'm sure that they won't. They'll stay away from it. But a lot of people say this is the testing of blue beam technology, the blue beam technology that we know about, that the elite powers in control, that the global elites have, that they will use ultimately to show holograms of a fake alien invasion, or showing us, or they're going to show us Jesus Christ in the sky talking to us and telling us to do things. A lot of people say that's what it is. As a matter of fact, I think that's the most common answer. But I don't think that's what it is. I think that the city, and I want to hear your thoughts as well, because this is very important. And it is important to see the actual videos so you can see how extraordinary this is. And it continues to happen. It continues to happen in other parts of the world too, like you said, Augie. And my theory, the only theory I can come from after looking at this, and this is a case that I may have to work on, that I may be assigned to really get to the bottom of. And what I see is these things appear in the clouds above usually a body of water, and they appear to be genuine cities, genuine section of a city with buildings and everything. The only thing I can see is that this is some kind of parallel dimension that's bleeding over into our dimension. And I'll tell you something more. We may be appearing to this dimension as well, through a window, through a mirror, where they can see us. And I'll tell you something else. This dimension that we're peering into, this alternate dimension that we are seeing in these incidences, I would say are much more likely reality than ours. Our reality is very improbable because this is a universe that we're peering into that apparently does have the Tesla technology that Tesla tried to spread to everyone back in the, what was it, like the 40s? I think it was the 40s or 50s when he tried to spread this technology to everyone, anti-gravity, free energy. I think we're living in the version of reality that's much more unlikely, where we still have cars that are functioning on fossil fuels after 100 years. After 100 years.
You're speaking my language.
Yeah, where we still don't have free energy, where we still don't have anti-gravity, when there's been so many attempts to give it to us, to spread it through the earth. I would say that that dimension that we're peering into in these incidences over China, that has the floating cities that are effortlessly floating in the sky, that is the dimension, that's the alternate reality that we're supposed to be living in. And I would tell you, living in this reality where the powers in control have successfully stopped, frozen our technology from moving forward, is very much more unlikely than the reality that we're peering into with the floating cities that are out there. I would say they are more likely to exist than we are. So anyway, that's my theory on it, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it as well, Aage and Diane.
Well, I would say you mentioned the two possibilities that I will probably only consider. That is blue beam. They do have the technology to do this, and I've seen some of the holograms that they have done. There was in a harbor in Australia, outside of Perth, I think. They had a holographic display right on the water in the harbor, and there was about a 200-foot tall, two people dancing on the water. And this was a holographic display, and it was so clear it looked real. Now, the only thing about this kind of hologram is that it doesn't work through the clouds. The clouds will obstruct because it is based on light beams.
Right.
So I think so we're back to that other theory that you have.
Yeah.
And I think that you probably there are several theoretical physicists now that come out and say it's very likely that we're just a holographic projection of some other technology. Because when they run the formulas on the blackboard using the quantum mechanics equations, they find that this world actually does not exist. Right. We are in a mind-created universe, and that mind, of course, could be a holographic, no, not a mind, but it could be created by a holographic projection type of equipment outside.
Yeah.
So, and there's also Winston Churchill, right before he died, he knew he was going to go, and he said, well, when I die, he says, I will go to a world about 5,000 foot above where I am living now. Do you think he knew something, or is this just kind of something he said just for fun?
No, I think he knew something. Also, Winston Churchill was also a clear hearer. Which most historians do not know, because he had a great voice of authority that would come to him and advise him at times when he was in impossible situations. But his advisors and his counselors covered it up by saying that he was a blackout drunk that heard voices because of his alcoholism. Yeah. And they figured that story was better than having a political leader that gets voices of guidance. And it worked, I guess, because everyone accepted that story, that he would just get blackout drunk and he would just hear murmuring voices and stuff like that.
Well, he was a drunk.
Yes, he was. But he was also a very special individual who would get undeniable inspiration from places that were unknown to us. Like when he stood up at a time when England was just about to be wiped out by the German forces. And he gave a speech that made no sense at all. The "We will never surrender" speech. When Adolf Hitler was actually holding out his hand to him to say, let's come to terms, let's make peace, and we'll spare England. and he went into a room and he consulted with someone that was not human, because every human had told him, you've got to make peace with Hitler. You've got to come to terms. Everything has been wiped out by the Nazis. And he went into a room and he got some kind of inspiration, and he came out and he gave the "We will never surrender" speech that basically galvanized the entire Western world behind England to defeat Germany. It was an amazing incident. So, yes. Oh, we have another person on the screen. Hey there.
Hello, who's that?
Oh, your sound isn't working. You've got to take yourself off mute. You're on mute.
I got a landline. It keeps calling. It's Friday. You get a lot of telemarketers on Friday. I don't know why. Don't ask me.
How is this happening?
Sir, did you have a question?
You were reminding me of the Star Trek In the Clouds episode where they were in the clouds and they were going down and the miners were all messed up. That's a Star Trek episode.
Oh, I love Star Trek.
Yeah. City in the Clouds, baby. City in the Clouds.
The original Star Trek?
Yeah, TOS. Yeah, they're Star Trek, the original series.
Yeah. Everyone should have that technology, according to what Tesla tried to do, and according to Roswell, the Roswell crash and the passing of technology. We have so much technology that has moved forward in little areas, in areas that don't matter. We can make. We went from technology that NASA would use that would fill up an entire room, a giant room. Now all of that technology can fit into our little cell phone, into these tiny little iPhones that we have. And
miniaturization.
Right. That in those areas, our technology has gone forward leaps and bounds, and yet we're still driving cars on the ground with friction on the wheels that function on gasoline. How is, after 100 years, that's almost impossible.
Yeah, it's almost ridiculous, because
it is ridiculous.
Charles Poe in Canada, he created a carburetor in the mid-1950s that got 204 miles per gallon, and I got the test results from Ford Motor Company.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Not only that, there was a
guy that did that, and he, all you had to do was put something on the carburetor, and you would get 100 miles a gallon.
Yeah. Yes, and we've had numerous incidences of men, great thinkers who have appeared and have an engine that can run on water or some similar material, and they always disappear. They disappear, and their patents disappear. And this has happened
because the oil companies bought them out.
Right. Yep. And this has happened dozens of times. How is it possible not one of these people are able to get through and survive and help us create that society that we're looking at when we see that city in the clouds? You know, we're in a very unlikely version
Star Trek
of
episode.
That's what I said.
Yeah, hey, that was great. Thank you for your call. And when you're back to this thing in China, I think it's probably more likely that you said that there is another reality that is peeking into ours. And when they are doing that, maybe they're wondering the same thing.
Yeah.
Because even though that they can possibly see people among the houses, because the picture of the floating city that was seen in Africa did not look the same. It was a different skyline. So it is different locations.
Yeah. And they're probably, and the people in the floating cities are probably wondering who are these primitives that are still living on the surface of the earth? How is that possible? We thought we left that behind so long ago. Yeah.
Well,
but do you think it could be possible that this kind of things could be a transmission, a kind of transmission of a future form of us that try to tell us something?
Oh, yes, absolutely it could be. It definitely could be. But my point is it shouldn't be, because we should have that future right now. We should have had it a long time ago. And that's the terrible situation that we're in at this point, where we're still pining away for free energy, for anti-gravity, for cures to cancer. How is that possible that hasn't happened, that the most basic diseases have not been cured at this point? It's very, very unlikely. That's what
the first cure for cancer that I have found in the medical journals date back to 1931, when Dr. Warburg got the Nobel Prize for discovering that no cancer microbe can live in a heavy oxygenated and alkaline environment.
Exactly right. And it's just bizarre that we have all these societies that are dedicated to the promotion of cancer and keeping it going in our humanity. And it's getting very difficult for them because there's so many cures that are appearing everywhere, and yet they still keep that control over the medical society and over our society in general, always promoting cancer as your only reality. It's a terrible version there.
I tell you though, Diana brought up an important issue here, and that is possibly that what we see over China is a future image, because in the future there is technologies where you could have a floating city.
Right, and it's very possible that floating city could be the most primitive part of their society. They probably have a lot of other things that are mind-boggling besides that, and we're just seeing that tiny little part of what they have.
Maybe that's just rift in the time-space continuum where we can be able to see some small portion of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy, this gets interesting. Now, you're having a time of your life, aren't you, John?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Great time, and I'm doing a lot of things, doing a lot of very interesting things that I really enjoy, and trying to spread this information, help people to understand the society, the truth of the society that we're living in right now.
And
but John, according to my information about you and the book that I read about that you wrote, it seems to me that you have a huge knowledge that is coming to you from a highest source. Let's talk like that. So I would like to ask you something that I never asked someone before. Just imagine you play a game with me, and then you wake up tomorrow and you will know that the whole humanity has no memory. And you will be the only one who has a memory about everything. Yeah. What would you tell to the humanity squeezed from your knowledge in order that they will have a new beginning and they will not screw it up
like
once again?
I would tell them that we have to start not with science, but with spirituality as being the basis of our reality. And we need to promote the shamanic knowledge and understanding over that of science. And that has to be, in other words, the control over scientific method and scientific work has to be ultimately shamanic and spiritual. That's what I would tell them, because that to me is the most important thing that we're caught in right now, is this web of scientism that is misleading us, deceiving us, lying to us, and controlling us. Because it's not really a search for knowledge. It's really an organized religion that is really misleading us in every single way. That's the first thing I would say.
And would you tell them about religions?
Oh, well, that's a good one, because I am generally against organized religions, but people will always gravitate towards them, even in general. And one of the things, if you read my book, towards the end, The Great Voice, one of the things I asked them was, one of the things that when I started learning and teaching people how to be conversant with the Great Voice in everyday life, I put several questions to the Great Voice. And one of the questions I said was what is the right religion? And the answer that I got, I mean, I didn't completely understand it, but I wrote it down in my book along with several other answers. One of the answers I got was that religion should be a stepping stone, not an end goal. That some people need organized religion as a way to begin an understanding of God and reality and what it is. But was never meant to be a place to stay. It's only meant to be a step in their development towards the understanding, a true understanding of love. And so that's how I feel. I feel that that's correct about religion.
Yeah.
But you also say in your book that there are only two choices available to every single human being in this universe in regards to the laws of the universe. They must decide to live in concert with and become beneficiaries of the source's law, or the second choice, taken by the most, is to suffer the negative effects of living in contravention with the creator source's laws that operate our reality. So right. I quoted from your book.
Yes.
Can you explain this in a few minutes that we left?
Yes, most people many people go through these self-destructive phases. I did when I was very young, where you decide to live contrary to your purpose, contrary to the laws of the universe. In the paranormal and spiritual, I believe everything functions according to laws, and I always write about that in my books. And most people tend to live in contravention against those laws and against their own benefit. And when they do, those are the instances when sometimes these miracles happen. When the Great Voice comes and gives people a great big smack in the back of the head and says, hey, you've got to change things. You've got to do better than things. You've got to change the alignment of your purpose. And hopefully some people listen to that and they do change the alignment of their purposes and start living in concert with the laws of the universe and what their creator source wants for them. And that's what happens. And so they start living better lives, like I did and like many people do. And I think then they find out that they are guided in a much smoother path towards their purpose, their true purpose in the universe. That's how I see that. Yeah.
And do you think that we make this choice to suffer according to our mental programs, to our beliefs that were implanted in our mind since we were kids?
Oh, yes, absolutely. A lot of times we receive that sometimes terrible programming at the time that we are kids. And it takes a while to undo a lot of that programming and to help us. But the good news is that the source of the Great Voice functions according to emotional connection, because the emotion is what carries the spirit. And so when we are in these moments of crisis and we feel that emotion of desperation, of negative emotions, we are able, and whether we want to or not, we tend to reach out to this great source, this incredible version of you that exists, like you said, Diane, in a future reality, that barely remembers who you were when you were just a human being trying to get stuff. And so that emotional response is what reaches out towards that great source. And then that great source looks back and sees you, and it will reach back to you. So that's the good news about that this childhood trauma and sometimes these negative emotions, they will result in something good when we make that ultimate connection, with the great source of the voice.
I see we are getting down towards the end of the show here, and I want to make sure that you get your word out, because you have written 3 books that I have here, and hey, here we go.
Hey, there they are.
2 of them anyway. And I tell you, folks,
the Para Investigators and the Extra Dimensionals. Yeah.
Yes.
And the Clear Hearers.
Yes, and the Clear Hearers.
And tell us where they can get a hold of you and where they can see more of this.
Yes, my website is johnthamabooks.com, and that's my website. But my books are available on Amazon. I would recommend for this conversation the Para Investigators, which is a basic explanation of the most basic investigative methods, because we're living in a society where we need to be investigators, not just researchers, because there's so much deception out there. And the Extra Dimensionals is the reality, of course, of who alien visitors are and what they're doing, what they want from you. And of course, the Clear Hearers is about that great voice of authority that comes to us and will help us and will sometimes save our lives as well. So, and also I want to say I have a conference coming up, which is going to be the Portal to Ascension conference in Irvine, California, October 5th to the 7th. Coming right up, that is going to be featuring a lot of breaking news on these topics that we've been talking about, Augie. And of course, we'll have there Jordan Sather, we'll have Teresa Yanaros, we'll have Grant Cameron, and many, many others that are leaders, and Jason Quitt, who are great leaders in these fields. That's coming right up.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can try to make it out there for that one. That will be really good.
Yes, it will. Yeah. Bring Diana too.
Yeah, sure.
Well,
fly
has
her.
To be a teleportation.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Yeah, okay. We'll work on that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I thank you very much, John, for coming here and spending an hour with us. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Aage.
Thank you very
Diane.
much.
Thank you so much, Diane. Awesome time.
Yeah, we will then, maybe we'll find something good after the, there may be some new information coming out there, so maybe we could do this again.
Yes, that'd be great, Aage.
Yes. All right. Okay, thank you very much. And then next week, we will see you again here at the Universal Consciousness Show. And until then, take care of each other.